My mischievous sister Mary eloped with her husband, Todd, and left her son, Matt, in my care. He was just 6 months old and diagnosed with a chronic condition that gave him little chance of survival. Since that day, I hadn't seen Mary or Todd. Now, after 15 years, they stood right in front of me, stirring up a storm of old emotions and unanswered questions. Todd burst into laughter at something Mary said, and I struggled to keep my composure. Mary spoke about Matt as though nothing had changed, and Todd joined in as if it was all some grand joke. Listening to them made my stomach churn. I wanted to end the conversation and walk away, but before I could, a familiar voice called out behind me. "Mom, it's time to go." I turned to see Matt, sharp and confident in his suit, looking at me apologetically. When Mary and Todd recognized him, their smug expressions faltered. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Gemma. I'm 40 years old and work in an office. My son Matt, though not biologically mine, is the kindest, most considerate young man I know. He's my nephew, Mary's son, and we've lived together for the past 15 years. Here's how it all began. 15 years ago, I was married to Todd. We had a promising future, even if we were often busy. With no living parents, we leaned on each other through life's challenges. Then, one day, I came home to a dark and empty house. It was unusual. As I cautiously turned on the light, I was startled to see little Matt standing there. "Welcome home, Aunt Gemma," he said. Confused, I asked, "Matt, why are you here? Where are Mary and Todd?" Without a word, Matt handed me a note. My hands trembled as I read Mary's brief, shocking message: "I want to be with Todd." On the living room table, I found divorce papers. Frantically, I tried calling Todd and Mary, but my calls went unanswered. When Todd finally responded, it was through a cold, mechanical message. Mary never replied. I was forced to face the harsh reality: Todd had left me for my own sister. "Aunt Gemma, where did Mommy go?" Matt's innocent question shattered me. How could Mary leave her child behind, especially knowing his condition? She had raised him alone after her divorce, doing her best in difficult circumstances, but now, she had chosen to abandon him. I hugged Matt, who looked utterly lost. His mother had entrusted me with his care, claiming she could no longer manage. At first, I thought it was temporary, a respite for Mary, who was exhausted by his diagnosis. Doctors had given Matt just 6 months to live. I wanted to help in any way I could. "Don't worry, Mary," I assured her one evening. "I'll take care of Matt so you can rest." Mary was relieved. Over time, Matt grew closer to me, and I cherished every moment we spent together. But Mary's visits became less frequent. Her excuses for coming late felt increasingly hollow. "Mary, where are you going all the time?" I asked one evening. "Relaxing, like you suggested," she replied evasively. "I trust you, but it's hard not to worry when you're gone so long." "Gemma, I have my own life to live," she snapped coldly. Her words cut deep. While I focused on Matt's needs, Mary seemed to drift further away. And then, one day, she disappeared entirely, leaving Matt and me to rebuild a life from the pieces she abandoned. I grew increasingly uneasy but held my tongue, hoping to avoid making things worse. Over time, it became clear that Mary's behavior wasn't going to change. "Fine," I told her one evening, forcing calm into my voice, "but if anything happens, let me know." "Thank you, Gemma," she replied, though her detached attitude left me with a sense of foreboding. Eventually, I learned the truth. Mary had been dating various men while leaving Matt with me. She even started dropping him off at my doorstep without so much as a phone call. Her complete disregard for Matt's well-being felt like a betrayal, and her casual indifference left me speechless. "Matt, do you know where your mom goes?" I asked him gently one day. "No, Mom doesn't like to talk about it," he replied quietly. I couldn't believe it. She didn't even explain her absences to her own son. Then one day, without warning, Mary disappeared. She left Matt at my house and never returned. That was the last I saw of her, until today. Mary had abandoned her son, and Todd had gone with her, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I was overwhelmed with disbelief and anger, but when I looked down, Matt was staring up at me, his wide eyes filled with fear and confusion. Kneeling to meet his gaze, I made a decision. "Matt," I began gently, "your mom might not be coming back for a while." "Why not?" he asked, his voice trembling. I hesitated, unsure how to explain. Matt was still too young to understand everything, but I knew I couldn't shield him from the truth forever. "Your mom had to go far away," I said finally, keeping my voice steady. "But you have me. I'll be here with you, always, okay?" Matt's eyes glistened with worry, but he nodded and gave me a small, uncertain smile. From that day forward, it was just the two of us. Matt had always been frail, tiring quickly from even the lightest activities. Mary had claimed he was receiving treatment, but it was hard to believe. His health was clearly poor, and I began to wonder how much care he truly had. Wanting to understand his condition fully, I took him to the hospital for a thorough checkup. The truth was devastating. The doctors explained that Matt's diet had been severely lacking in nutrition. Reflecting on it, I realized Mary had only ever fed him things like jelly and bananas. When I once questioned whether that was enough, she'd shrugged and said, "It's all he eats, so don't give him anything else." From then on, I dedicated myself to ensuring Matt received the care he deserved. I started learning about proper nutrition and began preparing balanced meals. Every morning, I made a nourishing soup packed with vegetables to help him regain his strength. It wasn't easy at first. Matt struggled to eat much, but he gradually grew better at finishing his meals. "Good job, Matt. You're eating more than before," I praised him one day. "Thank you, I'm trying my best," he said with a proud smile. As his strength returned, so did his confidence. Little by little, his spirit began to shine again. I consulted with doctors and started taking him out for light exercise, hoping to give him a chance at a long, healthy life. Each night, I tucked him in and listened as he excitedly recounted his day. "Today, I played catch and threw the ball farther than before," he exclaimed one evening. "That's amazing, Matt. You're getting stronger every day," I replied with a grin. "It's all thanks to you, Aunt Gemma," he said earnestly. His gratitude filled my heart with warmth, though I never showed it. I often held back tears. Day by day, Matt grew healthier and stronger, and watching his progress became my greatest joy. I wanted to give Matt the best life possible, to keep him safe and happy for as long as I could. 15 years passed in what felt like a blink, though I'd aged. Living with Matt gave my life purpose. I never remarried after Todd left with Mary. My life had changed too drastically. Sometimes, I found myself wondering about them, curious about what kind of people they had become, but I didn't actually want to see them. That curiosity was unexpectedly satisfied a few days later. "Hey, are you Gemma?" I was out shopping when a voice called out. Turning, I saw a face I hadn't expected to see again, an older but unmistakable Mary. "Mary?" I asked, caught off guard. "It really is you," she exclaimed, her voice cheerful as if nothing had ever happened. "Gemma, long time no see." A chill ran down my spine as memories from 15 years ago came flooding back. Before I could respond, a man approached Mary. It was none other than Todd. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked. Then, spotting me, he added with a grin, "Wait, is that Gemma? Wow, Gemma, you've aged quite a bit, haven't you?" I clenched my jaw, barely containing my anger. The audacity of these two was astonishing. Matt and I had an unspoken agreement never to talk about them, but we both knew the scars they had left. Now here they were, smiling and acting as though everything was fine. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked sharply, my anger slipping through. Mary waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, Gemma, aren't you glad you got to spend time with Matt?" I stared at her, speechless. Her audacity was staggering. "Oh, don't be so mad," she continued with a smirk. "Let bygones be bygones." Todd laughed beside her, as though the whole thing was a joke. "And how's that brat of yours doing?" Mary asked with a casual cruelty that made my blood boil. "Don't talk about him that way," I snapped. "Matt's not some dying kid," Todd added, laughing again. I looked at them, wondering if they were even capable of humanity. "What, still single, Gemma?" Mary sneered. "Miss your chance, huh? Well, Todd and I are still madly in love." I refused to engage with their taunts. The more frustrated they tried to make me, the more I resolved not to give them the satisfaction. "Are you still bitter about being left?" Todd teased. "Not that you could ask for alimony or child support anyway." Despite their mocking, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction that I hadn't let them provoke me. I decided it was time to leave, but Todd's next words stopped me cold. "Well, Mary's kid might have been a failed experiment, but our daughter is perfectly healthy." That word, daughter, stung. I turned to them with a question. "How old is your daughter now?" "She just turned 14, Todd said proudly. "She's the cutest thing ever." Todd's joy contrasted with Mary's sudden tension. I sensed there was more to the story. "So, you got pregnant after you left?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Mary's face hardened. She had been gloating moments ago, but now she looked nervous. "Is she really Todd's child?" I pressed. Mary flinched, and Todd's smile faltered. "Of course, she is," he said quickly. She was born a year after we started living together. I tilted my head, skeptical. Well, that's questionable. Mary, you were meeting all kinds of people while leaving Matt with me, isn't that right? Todd's eyes widened in shock. What are you talking about? The truth began to dawn on him. When Mary and Todd had left, I'd hired a detective out of desperation. I learned that Mary had been seeing other men on the side, even during the weekdays. Mary was out enjoying herself while I cared for Matt. I continued. She spent weekdays with other men while you were working. Todd looked at Mary, his face pale. Is that true? He asked, his voice trembling. Mary stayed silent, looking at the floor. You told me you were exhausted, working for Matt's sake, Todd said, his voice rising. Still, Mary said nothing. Then why did you marry me? Todd's voice cracked with hurt. Was I just convenient? Mary refused to meet his gaze, her silence betraying everything. For a moment, Todd looked utterly lost, his confidence and pride crumbling. I stood there watching, the satisfaction of the truth coming to light doing little to erase the years of pain they had caused. Todd was the most financially stable out of all the men you dated, wasn't he? Mary's eyes widened, and her voice rose in panic. Stop it. Todd turned to her, his face a mixture of anger and disbelief. Is that true? Was I just your ATM? Mary froze, her face flushed with embarrassment, unable to respond. I kept my tone calm but firm. I have recordings. Mary, conversations with your so-called friends where you referred to Todd as your ATM. Her expression shifted from defiance to fear as the weight of her exposed secrets sank in. Todd's devastation was palpable. So, our daughter might not even be mine? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, that's ridiculous, she's yours, Mary exclaimed, grabbing his arm desperately. I shrugged, unfazed. There's a simple way to find out, a DNA test. Mary's face turned ghostly pale, her confidence crumbling. No, there's no need for that. She's Todd's daughter. I didn't care to argue further. I had come to stand up for Matt, not to debate Mary's lies. Whatever you two decide to do is your business, I said coolly, but remember this, I raised Matt with love and care, and that will never change. As I turned to leave, a familiar voice called out behind me. Mom, are you ready to go? I turned to see Matt standing a few steps away, dressed sharply in a suit, his confidence shining. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, Matt, I said warmly. It's okay, let's go. Mary and Todd stared at Matt in shock, unable to recognize the strong, healthy young man before them. Wait, is that Matt? Mary's voice trembled as she pointed, her hand shaking. Yes, I said calmly, this is Matt. He's 20 now and thriving. Matt stepped forward, his tone firm yet composed. I remember everything, even though I was young. I know exactly who you are, my biological mother and her lover. Todd's face contorted in confusion. But, weren't you supposed to be really sick? Mary said you only had 6 months. I cut in, addressing Todd directly. There was no illness. That 6-month story? It was a lie Mary invented. When she left, I took Matt to the hospital. The doctors diagnosed him as malnourished, nothing more. He just needed proper food and care. Mary's face turned crimson as I continued, and for the record, Matt was never a picky eater. He eats well now, healthy, strong, and even played sports in high school. I'm studying to become a doctor, Matt added, his voice unwavering. I want to make sure no child ever has to go through what I did. Todd and Mary were speechless. Todd finally broke the silence, his voice full of regret. I had no idea. Matt, I'm so sorry. There's no need for apologies, Matt said curtly. Gemma raised me. She's my real mother. Mary tried to interject, her voice cracking. Matt, I regret everything. I'm so sorry for leaving you. Matt raised a hand to stop her. Don't. I remember the times you pushed me out of the house when strange men came over. I remember the day you abandoned me. I decided then I'd never forgive you. Mary's face crumpled as she realized there was no reconciliation to be had. You call her mom? Yes, Matt said without hesitation. Gemma is my real mother. Mary stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as Matt and I walked away. Later, I heard Todd went through with the DNA test and confirmed the daughter wasn't his. He sued Mary for damages, filed for divorce, and cut ties with her for good. Mary tried spreading rumors about him, but it only backfired, leaving her isolated and penniless. I eventually blocked Mary's desperate messages. Meanwhile, Matt continued to grow into a remarkable young man. He got engaged to a wonderful woman, and I couldn't have been prouder of him. On Matt's 20th birthday, We celebrated with a dinner at his favorite restaurant. As we clinked glasses, I looked at him, my heart full of pride and love. To adulthood, I said with a smile. Cheers, Matt replied. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. Every choice I'd made for Matt had been worth it, and seeing him thrive was all I had ever wanted.